Hi, I'm Paul from Norway, and a very common question I get about Oslo is when is the best time to visit? Now, the high season here goes from June to August, with July until mid-August being the peak season with the most people around. Obviously, that's because this is vacation time in Europe, but it's also the warmest time of year and with the least chance of rain, and people want to take advantage of that weather. Actually, I'm seeing more and more people coming here in July to avoid the sweltering hot summers you find further south in Europe. However, if you want almost as good weather, you can come here in May and even late August, early September, and you can experience a very pleasant climate with fairly warm and sunny days, but with much fewer people around. You can of course come visit all year round. It depends a bit on what your interests are. If you want to have a chance of snow on the ground, perhaps you want to ski, then come in January or February. Or if you want Christmas markets, come late November until mid-December. So my personal recommendation, if you enjoy traveling in the shoulder season, is to come here in May, early June, or in late August, September, or for the best weather, come here in July. And if you want winter weather, you should come here in January or February. To get around in Oslo, I recommend walking. It's just a great way to get to know the city, and Oslo is also very walkable. There's a lot of pedestrianized streets, traffic is limited downtown, and most of the downtown area is quite flat. Although the city is surrounded by hills, so once you're out of the downtown area, you can expect it to become more hilly. For instance, you can basically walk all the way from the east side in the neighborhood of Grünerløkka and straight through the entire city to the west side of Oslo and the Vigeland Park in just about 1 hour. So bring good shoes and explore Oslo like a local. If you want to shorten down your walk time, you can hop on a city bike. There are Oslo city bikes parked all over town, and when Rick Steves visited Oslo, I spent a full day with him and we used them to ride everywhere. These days, in major tourist destinations across Europe, such as Madrid, London, Paris, you want to book activities well ahead of time. However, for Oslo, that is not really the case. We don't get the crazy crowds of people up here, not even in summer, and things rarely book up. For instance, at the National Museum, which is the biggest museum in town, you can pretty much show up any time of the week. And there won't be any long lines to get in. Same goes for perhaps the biggest attraction in Oslo, the Vigeland Park, where you don't need a ticket at all. Just enter at any time during the day. Now, there's a few exceptions here, like for instance, if you want to watch a performance at the Oslo Opera House, I'd advise you to book weeks or even months ahead of time. And that goes for pretty much any popular artist or cultural event taking place, like for instance Øyafestivalen, which is a big music festival in Oslo every August. You really want to book tickets well ahead of time. If you want a guided tour of the Royal Palace in summertime when it's open, I also recommend you booking ahead of time for that. There's also the Oslo Pass that gives you free public transportation in the city and access to most sites in Oslo. Or if you're heading to the Fram Museum, Kon-Tiki or Maritime Museum, know that they have a combo ticket if you want to visit more than one of them. A lot of visitors to Oslo end up leaving Oslo with the Norway in a nutshell tour, which I made a separate episode about. And this journey, I'd say it's essential to book well ahead of time, especially between May and September. It's also good to know that some tour operators will give you a discount if you book ahead of time or if you book online, so that's also worth looking into. What I love about Oslo is its public transportation. The city is so well connected with buses, trams, metros, ferries, and it's all available on one ticket and in one zone, which is Zone 1. You can buy tickets at a local kiosk or do as the locals, download the Ruter app, where you can get single tickets, 24-hour tickets, 7-day tickets. If you're only doing 2 to 3 rides a day, buying a single ticket is just as economical. You can also use the Ruter app for route planning, or if you use the Google Maps, that works well too. The more expensive option for getting around are taxis. There are taxi stops close to main stations, but you can also use Uber or Bolt in Oslo. Note that taxis are not cheap here, so it's more for convenience. Like I said earlier, my top recommendation is to walk around Oslo and get to know the city that way. But to save time, hop on some public transportation. You absolutely do not have to learn Norwegian in order to travel in Norway. English is widely understood and spoken, but isn't it more fun to order a kaffe og kanelbolle at a cafe instead of a coffee and a cinnamon bun? Most Norwegians speak English, and especially in the cities, their English proficiency is excellent. However, like in any culture, Norwegians appreciate visitors who make an effort to speak the local language, which can open doors to connections and experiences you might miss otherwise. There are many ways to learn. You can use Duolingo, you can just Google some simple phrases online. However, if you're a bit more serious about it, I recommend checking out the language school Speak Norsk. I'll post a link to their website below. If you're planning a trip here soon, their downloadable guide, Hvordan introdusere seg på norsk, is a nice little introduction to how to introduce yourself in Norwegian with English translations. Also available is a free ebook with essential Norwegian words and phrases. This will teach you common greetings, numbers, days of the week, common verbs, adverbs and adjectives and more, and it's all for free. They also offer Norwegian courses, both online and in person, and in my opinion, these are some of the best courses on the market. So it means you can start learning long before you travel to Norway. Their Viking offer is a great course package that they have designed to take you from complete beginner to advanced speaker in only 6 months. Norwegians are breakfast people, so you can expect a pretty big breakfast table at hotels. This is great for getting a good start on the day, and if you're traveling on a budget, breakfast might be your biggest meal of the day. So you can expect bread, a lot of bread, and a lot of different kinds of spreads as well, like the iconic Norwegian brown cheese, liver pate, ham, cheese, jam, salmon, hard-boiled eggs, milk, fruit juice, pastry, and so on. We're big coffee drinkers, and you can find coffee shops all over town and basically any kind of coffee. Even in hotels, they'll often have a good drip coffee and an espresso machine. For a nice Norwegian chain, head to Kaffebrenneriet, or for a specialty roaster, head to Furen Coffee Roasters, or Tim Wendelboe, which has an on-site micro roastery and high-quality coffees. Lunch is typically eaten between 11:30 and 1 o'clock, and it's not a big meal here in Norway, as it is in many other European countries. Most Norwegians do with some more bread or a salad, a sandwich, and typically we like to have coffee and some sweet pastry. There are bakeries all over town where you can find delicious Norwegian sweet buns and cakes. You could also just do a waffle or a hot dog for lunch. You find hot dog kiosks all over town, some a bit more modern, while others a bit more traditional. Dinner starts not particularly late, and you can find people starting to eat already around 5:30 in restaurants. But they'll serve dinner until late, so no worries, you really have a lot of flexibility here. But I'd say the prime time at restaurants goes from around 6:30 to 8:30 in the evening. Norway is not a tipping country, meaning that when you're in Oslo, you don't tip at cafes. At a restaurant, you tip between 5 to 10%, but never more than that. You can usually tip when you pay with a card. Just enter a higher total sum to include the tip. In general, our attitude towards tipping is that we only tip when we're happy with the food and we're happy with the service. Most waiters here are paid fair wages, so they're not dependent on tips. But one of the things that I always say is that if you like the service, you should definitely leave something. So at a restaurant, let's say you round up the bill, or even leave 10% if you were super happy with everything. Taxis or other services might have their own rules as well. But personally, I rarely tip in a taxi. They're already quite expensive. But remember, always tip a tour guide if you're happy with the tour. Norway is becoming a cashless society, meaning that you can pay pretty much with a credit or a debit card everywhere in Oslo. However, all businesses are required to accept cash, so if that is your preference, you can use that. If you do need to withdraw cash, there are plenty of ATMs and places to exchange money all over town. MasterCard and Visa card are the most common accepted forms of payment, but you also see places accepting American Express and other types of cards. And you can also use Apple Pay on your phone. So my advice would be to bring at least 2 cards, so that if one card is not working, the other one is. If you're confident that your cards will work, then I'd say you don't have to bring cash when you come visit Oslo. Oslo is a very safe city, even for solo travelers, female travelers. You don't really have to worry much about crime, but like any major city in Europe, you should be aware of pickpockets. It's not a big problem here though. I don't think us locals go around thinking much about it. But when you're out traveling, you don't want to have your vacation spoiled because you lost your passport, your cash, or your credit cards. Now don't be paranoid, be smart. Wear a money belt where you can keep your passport, an extra card, or so on. You can of course also leave your passport in the safety deposit box in the hotel in case you don't want to carry your passport around. So then just make a copy of it and bring that with you. There's a lot to see and do in Oslo, and I would recommend spending at least 2 full days here. But if you have more time, you can consider doing a day trip. Now you have to choose whether you want to stay close to the fjord or if you want to venture out into the countryside. One option is to hop on a fjord ferry and ride it for about 1 hour south to the fjord village of Drøbak. This is a super cute town with white wooden houses, charming streets, small shops and a maritime vibe. There's also a small ferry that can take you to and from the Oscarsborg fortress, where you can visit a World War II museum to learn about the Battle of the Drøbak Sound, and you'll also get amazing views of the Oslo fjord. Another option for a day trip about 2 hours north of Oslo is the town of Lillehammer. You can easily get there on a train departing every hour from the Oslo Central Station. It's an enjoyable train ride. You get to see plenty of the countryside. And once in Lillehammer, you can visit the popular Maihaugen open-air folk museum, the Lysgårdsbakkene ski jumps, and stroll around in Lillehammer downtown, checking out the cute little shops and cafes. In the afternoon, you can ride the same train back to Oslo. You can buy these tickets through the V app or on the V website. Norwegians are quite casual, but they do like to dress up a bit when they go out for dinners and to bars and so on. So it can be a good idea to bring a nice pair of pants, a nice sweater or button-down shirt to go with it, or a nice dress if you are a woman. But to be honest, you can get away with most things these days. However, my recommendation would be to rather be a little bit overdressed than underdressed. About weather, in general, there's only one thing to say: it's unpredictable. That means you want to come prepared for different kinds of weather types and potentially 4 seasons in one day. When considering what kind of clothing to bring, you might wonder if Oslo is extremely cold in the winter. Well, not really. It has a coastal climate, but there can be a lot of wind chill, bringing the temperatures down. In general, I say always have something waterproof with you, dress in layers, but also bring shorts and t-shirts for hot summer days, and bring your swimming gear in case you want to jump into the Oslo fjord. I've published a Norway packing list on my website, so go online, check it out. I'll post a link below where you can learn how to dress for each season in Norway. All right, that's all the advice I had for now. If you need some ideas for things to do in Oslo, check out my 2 Hidden Gems episodes. I also work as a local guide here, so look me up if you come visit. I can also help you plan your next adventure in Norway. If you enjoyed the episode, consider supporting me on Patreon. And until next time, ha det bra!